Okay guys, so today we're going to talk about different types of figurative language. So we've already touched on a few of these, but I want to make sure that we really understand all of them because we're going to be doing a lot of activities with figurative language and talking a lot about different types of figurative language. So first off, if you haven't already, you should have grabbed your notes page, which should look like this. Um, this is my text box, that's why that's up here. But you should have a page that has a bunch of blank boxes, and if you flip it over, it's going to have blank boxes on the back as well. This is what we're going to fill in as we go through our notes. I'm going to fill in a few of these just to show you what I'm expecting in these boxes, and then you guys will finish the rest along with this video. So this video, I'm just going to be explaining each type, and then if you need to pause the video to write things into your notes, that's fine. So first off, what is figurative language? So figurative language is sometimes also called figures of speech, and this includes words or phrases that either you say or we're going to be mostly focused on things that are written that mean something different than the individual words might indicate. So each kind of figurative language has unique characteristics. Use the figurative language posters here. We're going to look at each of these different types. So we're going to start with something called alliteration. So right now I'm going to show you what you would do with your notes. So let me pull this up. So in the very first box over here, you would type in alliteration. I'm sorry, not type in. I am typing in because I'm on my computer. You would just write in alliteration, and you can write it as large or as small as you want. It's up to you. This is just apparently as good as it's going to get on here. So you're going to write alliteration at the top, and that's what you're going to do for all of these boxes. Is you're going to write the type of figurative language at the top of each box. So we're starting with alliteration. What is alliteration? So alliteration is the repetition of the first letter or sound of each word in a sentence, phrase, or poem. So on my notes here, that's what I'm going to write. I'm going to write I'm not going to write alliteration again because I already have that at the top, but I'm going to put repetition. I'm going to move this over and make sure I spell repetition right. See, I already spelled it wrong. Of the first word, or move this over a little bit so you guys can see. First word or first letter, not word, or sound of each word in a sentence, phrase, or poem. So that's going to be the first part of my notes, is just telling what is alliteration. So it's that repeated sound, a repeated letter or sound. So that's step one, is you're just going to write that part in. And you're going to do this for each of the boxes. You're just going to write what the actual type of figurative language means. Then down here, I definitely want you to write the example, because I know sometimes we can kind of get lost in the definition and read the definition and still be like, wait, what does that mean? So I definitely want you to write your example down for each of these two. So the example they gave is, voracious volcanoes vibrated the valley very violently. So you hear the alliteration is that V sound being repeated. I also want you to notice it's not every word. So like the word the is in here, but this still counts for alliteration because it's most every sound, or several of the words in a sentence or phrase or poem have that same sound. Here's another example down here. Dinosaurs desperately dug ditches to drive away dangerous dragons. So you hear that D sound being repeated over and over again, but we still do have other words, to, away, but that D sound is really heavy in a lot of these. So over here, I'm going to make this smaller just for me. I'll make it bigger for you guys in just a second. And I'm going to write the example in here. So I'm going to put example. And then I'm going to choose one of those examples. It really doesn't matter which one you want to choose. Sorry, I'm still figuring out how to do this. Okay, example. I'm going to put the dinosaurs one. Dinosaurs desperately dug ditches to drive away dangerous dragons. Okay. So we have our first one. So again, you should have the type of figurative language at the top. You should have the definition and then an example of each one. So that's alliteration. You've probably definitely heard these in tongue twisters as well. Or if you ever sing, if you work with a choir, sometimes choir instructors will have you do some sort of alliteration to help kind of warm up too. I remember doing that when I was younger. Okay, the next one is hyperbole. I know this word does not look like, it looks like hyperbole, but it's actually pronounced hyperbole. So let's go ahead and put that over here on our next set of figurative language. So I'm going to put hyperbole. All right, hyperbole is a figure of speech that includes an exaggeration, which couldn't possibly happen in real life. Sometimes a hyperbole also compares two things, but the exaggeration distinguishes it from other figures of speech. So this is where we're focusing on something that is totally made up. You're exaggerating so much that there's no way it actually happens in real life. So here's the example down here is, I know you've waited 1,000,000 light years to learn about hyperboles. So really what I'm saying is here is, I know you've waited a really long time to do something, but obviously you're not going to actually wait 1,000,000 light years to learn about something, right? So let's go ahead and put this in our notes.
Hey, Mommy, what are you doing?
Mommy's recording a video. Okay, can you sit here for just a second while I finish? Sorry, Ruby just woke up, guys. Ruby, you want to tell everybody hi? Nope, she just gave me a smile. Okay, so I'm going to add a new text box. So underneath hyperbole, I'm going to write the... Oh, I had two up there, didn't I? Okay, so I'm going to write the definition. I'm not going to write everything. So I'm just going to put an exaggeration that couldn't... Oh, I'm going to move this. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So an exaggeration that couldn't possibly happen in real life.
I love you, Mommy.
I love you too. Good morning. All right, and then I'm going to put my example down here. So my example
Mommy,
is, hold on, Ruby, you gotta be quiet for a moment to finish this, okay? Is, I know you've waited 1,000,000 light years light years to learn about this. All right, let me make this bigger. I'll move this over. Light years.
Why is it
You guys are probably going to get a lot of Ruby commentary on here, but I'm too far into this video to start over and find a place that's quieter, so we're just going to hang out.
Yeah, we can just gonna hang out.
Okay. All right, so again, I have my word at the top, so we're talking about hyperbole. I have my explanation here. I have what hyperbole means. And again, I didn't write every single thing over here. If you want to do that, you can, but you don't have to. You can just write bits and pieces of here. And I'll even highlight as I'm going through the rest of these which ones I think that you should probably do. And then also definitely make sure you have your example here, because we're going to be doing a lot of different practice with figurative language. And anytime we do anything with figurative language, you'll be able to use these notes. And I think the example is really going to help you out on these. So I will do one more where I'll actually type up the notes that you should have. And then I'm going to just go through the rest of them. So the next one is an idiom. We hear idioms all the time and you just don't realize that that's what they are. So idioms are expressions that mean something completely different than the words might indicate. So different idioms mean different things and can be understood, can't be understood by looking them up in a dictionary. So learning English spoken idioms can be done by paying attention to context clues where they occur and by learning what they mean. So the example they give us is don't chicken out. Idioms are fun. So when we think of the phrase don't chicken out, if you actually looked that up or thought about what the words means, don't chicken out. Chicken is not a verb, right? It's a noun. It's a thing. It's an animal. So this sentence actually wouldn't make sense if we were thinking of it literally. But if we're thinking of it figuratively, like figurative language, then we know that don't chicken out just means don't get scared and not do something, right? Um, that's an idiom. There are lots of examples of idioms and idioms. We talked about one, actually, another one that has to do with chickens is don't count your eggs before they've hatched. So that could be an example of, somebody else might say, well, I don't know exactly what that means. Really, all this means is that you don't want to assume that you have something before you have it, right? So those are different types of idioms. Let's go ahead and it's really hard to do an example for idioms because there are so many and they all mean different things. Like it said here in the notes, that idioms, you just have to use some context or you just have to know what those words mean or what that idiom means. And sometimes that means you just have to ask somebody if it's used, or you can always look it up too. You just don't want to use the dictionary to look it up. You'd rather use Safari to kind of look up what that means. So idioms are expressions, that, let's see, I'm going to make this small again so I can see, means something different than the words might indicate. Means something different than the words might indicate. Okay, and I'm going to then put my example down here. Let me move my text box over here. I'm going to give you two, so that way you can write both. So don't chicken out. That's one. And then let's do another one here. So let's see, another idiom that we use all the time might be don't count your chickens before they've hatched. We said that one, right? I'm going to hit the hay. So you may have heard that before. I'm going to hit the hay. Actually, that doesn't mean that you're going to go punch some hay or that you're going to fall into some hay. It really just means you're going to go to sleep, right? So those are different examples of some idioms, but there's literally thousands of idioms that we could use, right? Okay, so from here on out, you guys are going to be filling in the different boxes. So that might mean that you need to pause the video. I'm actually going to get rid of my notes here. I'm going to go through the types of figurative language that we have left. I'm just not going to write down the notes. You will just need to pause and do that. So another one is onomatopoeia, which I love this one. This one's super fun. It's a word that originates from a sound. So that's what I would write if you were writing on your notes. I would put onomatopoeia is a word that originates from sound. And here are lots of examples. So for example, neigh is an onomatopoeia word associated with the noise that a horse makes. So it's a word that almost sounds like the actual sound that it's describing. Another one might be ding dong is an onomatopoeia word that's associated with a doorbell. But if you say the word, not only does it describe the sound, it also sounds like the sound. Honk is another one. It's associated with a car horn, but if you say honk, it almost sounds like the honking of a horn, right? So you could use any of those words for your example. So if you need to pause right now, you're going to tell me an onomatopoeia is a word that originates or sounds like the sound it's describing, and you could use one of those as your example. The word splat or splash would also work. The next one is personification. So personification, if you see the word person in personification, personification is the act of giving human traits, qualities, or actions to objects, concepts, or animals. So that one's kind of a long one, but I think you probably need to put at least starting here, giving human traits or qualities or actions to objects, concepts, and animals. So that's what I would write in my notes. So if you need to pause here, go ahead and do that. So people use personification in their writing to make it come alive, literally. Giving human qualities to objects, concepts, or animals creates an emotional reaction in readers. An emotional reaction will make the reader care about what they are reading. When someone cares about what they are reading, they want to read more. So we see this all the time, especially in fiction. Your favorite cartoon probably has personification. If it's an animal that has been given human characteristics, or even an object that's been given human characteristics, that's personification. But we see it in writing a lot. For example, the stars are smiling and winking at us. So stars can't actually smile or wink, but they're trying to give you a sense of that the stars almost felt alive. They were twinkling, they were moving in some way that made the people think that they were smiling and winking at them. So if you haven't paused already, I would do that now. Make sure you've written personification, that it's giving human traits or qualities or actions to objects, concepts, and animals. And then you can give this example down here of the stars are smiling and winking at us as your example for that one. Similes and metaphors. I would suggest that you split this in between two boxes. So instead of saying similes and metaphors in the same box, you could put them in two separate boxes. If you want to put them in the one box, that's okay too. But we've already talked about these, but just to review, so similes and metaphors are things that are comparing. The big difference between it is that metaphors is a type of figurative language that says one thing is the same as something else. So it doesn't use like or as, it just says this is this. A simile is a type of metaphor where things are being compared, but it uses like or as. So they do, here's kind of a disclaimer down here. We've talked about these similes and metaphors are often confused, but there is a difference. So a metaphor says that a person, place, or thing is the same as another person, place, or thing, and a simile compares them by using like or as. So make sure you get those in. Again, I would separate these. I would put metaphor in one box, and I would put simile in another box. Just making sure that simile has the words like or as and metaphor does not. So here are a couple examples, and I really like this example because it's the same comparison, but it's showing the difference between a simile and a metaphor. So a simile is she is as happy as a clam. So we're comparing her to a clam in this case. This is also kind of an idiom too, in a way, comparing them to a clam, because we really don't know if clams are happy, but that's just kind of a phrase that's used. So a simile, this is a simile because they're using as, but a metaphor would change it. It'd still compare the person to the clam, but in this case it's saying she is a happy clam. So it's just saying this is this by comparison. So I know that was a lot, but I would again pause if you haven't already. Make sure that you have metaphor and simile. I would separate them. So I'd put metaphor in one box on your notes and simile in another box. And then make sure you're writing the definition of each in each box. So metaphor, it's comparing things, saying one thing is the same as something else. And simile is comparing two things using like or as. And then make sure you give me your examples. That's the end of this, guys. That's all that we're going to do here. So make sure that you've answered all of those. Let's see. We should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you should have 7 boxes total in your notes. So you should have all of the front filled in, and then one of the boxes on the back also filled in. Also filled in on the back for your notes. When you are finished with this notes page, I want you to go ahead and turn it into the tray, because we're going to talk about these later this week. But I want to check them and make sure that you guys have those finished. If you have missed something, then you can go back and rewatch this video, or rewind, go back to where you need in the video to write down whatever it is for your notes. And then you guys are going to move on to the next page in this module and continue on. You're going to work on the BFG. So go ahead and go back and do what you need to do. If not, head on to the BFG.